There are 4 primary risk factors for BPD, and the 4th one is the most common. BPD, or borderline personality disorder, involves a personality configuration that includes challenges with instability in mood, behavior, self-image, and relationships. People with BPD may experience intense emotions and impulsive behavior, which can cause problems of their own, but can also result in difficulty maintaining stable relationships. Research has identified 4 primary risk factors associated with BPD: brain anomalies, genetics, problems with brain chemicals, and environmental factors. So brain anomalies are problems that occur during brain development. MRI studies have shown that people with BPD may have problems with certain parts of their brain, specifically the amygdala, the hippocampus, and parts of the frontal cortex. The amygdala is a tiny almond-shaped deep brain structure that regulates emotions, especially negative emotions like fear, anxiety, and aggression. It links your emotions to your memories and your 5 senses. The hippocampus is a deep brain structure that's involved in memory, learning, and emotion. Its primary job is to hold short-term memories and transfer them to long-term storage in our brains. It also plays a role in emotional processing, including anxiety and avoidance behaviors. The frontal cortex of the brain is involved in planning and decision making. So this is the primary location of impulse control in the brain as well. What we found is that these brain areas may either be smaller than expected, or they may have unusual levels of activity. What we still don't know for sure, though, is whether these individuals were born this way or if their traumatic experiences caused the brain changes. These areas are very similar to the brain areas implicated in PTSD. So the question is whether PTSD and BPD are causing the problems in the brain areas, or if the brain areas are creating the PTSD and BPD symptoms. I tend to think it's the traumatic experiences that cause the brain changes because of the impact that early experiences can have on a developing brain. But that's just my opinion. So second possible cause of BPD is genetics, which refers to genes you inherit from your parents and your family gene pool. So BPD often runs in families, which means people with close relatives who have it are at greater risk of developing BPD as well. Just like we can inherit eye color, skin tone, or propensity for diabetes or high cholesterol, we can also inherit tendencies toward mental health conditions. We can't control what DNA gets passed on to us or what we pass on. Now, with BPD and other personality disorders, I think what's inherited is tendencies related to the way information is processed, which has to do with the way a person receives, perceives, and handles incoming information. That perception creates a thought, and thoughts generate feelings and then behavior. Just like you can see similar mannerisms across family members, we may also see that the way a person reacts to various stimuli or incoming information runs in families as well. Problems with brain chemicals. That's the third theory about BPD. This has to do with the idea that people with BPD have neurotransmitters that are misfiring. So neurotransmitters are messenger chemicals used by the brain to transmit signals between neurons, which are brain cells. So they cross the synapse between the 2 cells. They're thought to be at play with BPD, including serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine. So these chemical messengers play a significant role in regulating mood, impulse control, emotional responses. Let's look at each of those. So altered levels of serotonin have been linked to depression, aggression, and difficulty controlling destructive urges. This is why some of the SSRIs have been shown to be helpful with certain symptoms of BPD. Dopamine acts on areas of the brain related to feelings of pleasure, satisfaction, and motivation. Relevant to BPD, it also plays a role in memory, mood, and learning. Then there's norepinephrine, which is also known as noradrenaline. It's both a neurotransmitter and a hormone. It affects memory, attention, stress reactions, energy levels, and the regulation of emotions. As such, it plays an important role in the body's fight or flight response. There's also some research that shows that cortisol, which is the stress hormone, may be higher in people with BPD. So given that that is the stress hormone, this makes a lot of sense. The fourth, and in my experience, the most common and obvious cause of BPD has to do with environmental factors, particularly childhood trauma. So trauma includes being neglected or abandoned by one or both parents, being exposed to long-term fear or distress as a child, and being subjected to emotional, physical, and/or sexual abuse. This is why people with BPD generally also meet criteria for PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. In my experience as a psychologist treating BPD for 20 plus years, sexual abuse is most commonly linked to BPD. I believe it's because that kind of a violation particularly disrupts ideas related to boundaries, trust, self-image, and control. A field of study called epigenetics argues that external factors, such as those I just mentioned, are required to turn on the genes for the expression of BPD. In other words, a person may have a genetic predisposition to develop BPD, but a triggering event is required for the disorder to actually manifest. So epigenetics argues that your environment can cause changes that affect the way your genes work, the way they show up or express themselves. So those are the risk factors for the development of BPD. Drop your comments on which one you think is most applicable to either yourself or people you know who have BPD, and I'll see you next time.